You have a fatal addiction. It's not to your phone, or to the news, or to the approval of others, though those are symptoms. Your real addiction is to the belief that you have more time. You are addicted to the idea of someday. Someday you'll write the book. Someday you'll start the business. Someday you'll learn the instrument, fix the relationship, get in shape. And you believe this lie because it's comfortable. It allows you to exist in a state of permanent potential, which feels safer than the sharp, terrifying reality of action. But your potential is worthless if it remains locked inside you. It is a currency that devalues every single second you fail to spend it. You already know this. You feel it in the quiet moments. You feel it when you wake up, before your mind is fully online, and for a split second, the weight of your unlived life presses down on you. But then the phone is in your hand. The blue light hits your eyes, and the world rushes in. A flood of emails, notifications, headlines, and demands from other people. Their priorities become your priorities. Their noise drowns out the quiet signal of your own soul. Before you've even had a single thought that is truly your own, your day has been claimed. You feel it on your commute. Whether you're in a car, stuck in traffic, or on a train, packed in with 100 other people staring at their screens, you get a flash of awareness. You look out the window and you see your own reflection, and you don't recognize the person looking back. They look tired. They look like they're playing a part in a story they didn't write. You're moving, but you're not going anywhere. The days blur into weeks, the weeks into years, and the journey is always the same, to a place that doesn't quite feel like home. You feel it late at night. The house is quiet. The day is done. The work you do to pay the bills is finished. And here it is, a small, precious window of time that is yours. This is the moment. This is when someday could begin. But you're exhausted. The energy required to face the blank page, the empty canvas, or the silent instrument feels monumental. It's so much easier to scroll, to watch one more episode, to consume just a little bit more, to numb the quiet ache of knowing you've let another day slip away, another brick of your life used to build someone else's dream. And so you live inside a loop, a comfortable, predictable, soul-crushing loop. You have talent. You might even have some money saved up. You have ideas, but you are bankrupt in the only currency that matters. You are a ghost in your own life, haunted by the person you know you could be. And the most terrifying part is that you're starting to get used to it. You're starting to accept that this is all there is. I know what that silence feels like. The silence after the noise stops. When they fired me from Apple at 30 years old, it wasn't just a job I lost. It was my identity. I was the kid who started a revolution in a garage. I was the guy on the cover of magazines. My entire sense of self was built around this thing, this company, this mission. And then, in a single, brutal boardroom vote, it was gone. The first few months were a fog. The phone stopped ringing. The flood of urgent decisions that had defined every waking moment of my life for a decade just stopped. I had money, more than I could ever spend. I had a reputation, or at least a notorious one. I had talent, I suppose, but for the first time in my adult life, I had time. Unstructured, terrifying, empty time. I would wake up in my house in Woodside, a house that was far too big and empty, and the silence was deafening. There was no team to go to, no problem to solve, no product to design. There was just me and the clock on the wall, ticking. I felt like a failure. I felt humiliated. But underneath all that, a deeper, colder fear began to creep in. The fear of irrelevance, the fear that my best work was already behind me. I had this huge, gaping void of time ahead of me, and I had no idea what to fill it with. For a while, I did nothing. I traveled, I read, I thought about moving to Italy and just designing furniture. Anything to fill the space. But the ticking wouldn't stop. It was a constant reminder. Every second that passed was a second I wasn't building something. A second I was letting the world define me by my past failure instead of my next creation. It was in that crushing emptiness that I finally understood something that the whirlwind of success at Apple had hidden from me. Money is a result. Talent is a tool. But time? Time is the soil. It's the only thing you have to plant anything in. You can have the best seeds in the world, talent, and all the fertilizer you can buy, money, but if you have no soil, you have nothing. I realized I had been given the one thing I couldn't buy, a patch of empty soil, a chance to plant something new. That's when I started next. And that's when I bought the little computer graphics group from George Lucas that would become Pixar. Not because I had a grand plan, but because I couldn't stand the silence. I couldn't stand the thought of wasting the soil. Your situation right now, that feeling of being stuck, of being a spectator, it's the same emptiness I felt. You're standing in a field of fertile soil, but you're too busy looking at the sky, waiting for a sign, or complaining about the quality of your seeds. You're missing the entire point. Your problem isn't your job, or your boss, or your lack of money. Your problem is you've forgotten the value of the ground beneath your feet. The real problem is a fundamental misunderstanding of physics, the physics of a meaningful life. Most people believe that talent and money are forces of gravity. They think if you accumulate enough talent or enough money, opportunities and purpose will naturally be pulled toward you. So they spend their lives trying to get more. They get another degree, another certification, they chase the next promotion, the next investment. They polish their talent and hoard their money, waiting for that magical moment when it all comes together. But they have it backward. Talent and money are not gravity. They are inert. They are lumps of clay. They have potential, but they have no energy of their own. The only true force of gravity in your life is time, or more accurately, how you use your time. Think of it like this. Your time is a river. It is flowing, always in one direction. You can't stop it. You can't add to it. You can only decide where to place your boat. Most people just float. They let the currents of culture, expectation, and distraction carry them along. They drift into harbors of comfort and eddies of procrastination. Their talent and money are just cargo in the boat, getting a free ride to nowhere in particular. But a few people, the people who build things, the people who change things, the people who live lives that feel true, they understand the river differently. They see it not as a passive conveyor belt, but as a source of power. They don't just float, they put a paddle in the water. They aim their boat toward a specific point on the horizon and they row. The act of rowing, the focused application of effort over time, is what creates the gravity. When you start rowing towards something, a strange thing happens. The river seems to help you. The right currents appear. The wind picks up at your back. The things you need, the right people, the right ideas, the right resources start to get pulled into your wake. You don't attract them by having more money or more talent. You attract them by having a direction. You attract them with the force of your own focused momentum. Your problem is not a lack of resources. Your problem is a lack of rowing. You are sitting in a perfectly good boat, filled with clay, waiting for a sculptor to show up. You are the sculptor. The river is moving. It's time to start rowing. This leads to the one core insight that changes everything. It's a simple shift in perspective, but it's the difference between a life of drift and a life of design. Time is not a container to be filled. It is a lens to be focused. Imagine your life's energy is a beam of light. Your talent determines the color and intensity of that light. Your money can buy you a bigger lamp, a more powerful bulb. But the results you get in your life, the impact you have, the work you create, that is determined entirely by the lens. Time is that lens. If your lens is smudged with distraction, cracked with competing priorities, and warped by a lack of clarity, it doesn't matter how brilliant your light is. It will be scattered, diffused, and weak. This is the state most people live in. Their light is bright. They are talented, smart, capable, but it's being passed through a broken lens. The result is a dim, blurry patch on the wall. A life of quiet mediocrity. But if you take the time to clean and focus your lens, if you become ruthless about removing every smudge, every distraction, every obligation that scatters your attention, then even a modest light can be focused into a laser, a beam so powerful it can cut through steel. This is why you see people with less raw talent and fewer resources accomplish extraordinary things. It's not because they are better, it's because they have mastered the art of focus. They have built a life, a system, and a mindset that allows them to point all of their energy for a sustained period of time at a single point. You don't need more talent. You don't need more money. You need a cleaner lens. You need to stop spending your days polishing your light bulb and start spending them polishing your lens. Because a focused candle can achieve more than a diffused supernova. So how do you do this? How do you move from theory to practice? It comes down to a few core principles. These aren't rules. They are ways of seeing. First, you must treat your focus as a currency, not a feeling. The common mistake is to wait until you feel focused. You wait for the mood to strike. You believe that inspiration is a magical visitor that arrives unannounced. This is a lie we tell ourselves to justify our passivity. It's an excuse to keep floating. The reframe is this: focus is not an emotional state, it is a deliberate choice. It is a resource you allocate, just like money. Every morning you wake up with a finite amount of high-quality focus. Let's call it 100 units. Every time you check your email, you spend 5 units. Every time you scroll through social media, you spend 10 units. Every pointless meeting costs you 20 units. By 10 a.m., most people have spent their entire daily budget of focus on worthless distractions. And then they wonder why they have no energy left for the work that actually matters. When we were designing the first Macintosh, the pressure was immense. There were a million things to do, a million features we could add. The engineers would come to me with brilliant ideas for new ports, new software, new capabilities. But I knew the real battle wasn't what to add. It was what to protect. I had to protect the team's focus. I drew a very small box around the project. I said, it has to do these 5 things perfectly. Nothing else matters. We had to say no to 100 good ideas to protect our energy for a few great ones. This was incredibly painful. It meant telling smart, passionate people that their work wasn't going to make it. But a single, focused product is 1,000 times more powerful than a Swiss Army knife that does everything poorly. For you, this means you must begin your day with a budget. Before you look at your phone, before you open your laptop, you must decide, where will I invest my first best block of focus today? It might be 1 hour, it might be 30 minutes. But you protect that time like it's the most valuable asset you own, because it is. You go into a quiet room. You turn off your phone. You tell people not to disturb you. You allocate your best energy to your most important work first. The rest of the world can have your leftover attention. Not the other way around. Stop waiting to feel focused. Start spending your focus on purpose. Second, design your life through subtraction, not addition. The common mistake is to believe that growth comes from adding more. More goals, more projects, more books to read, more habits to start. Your to-do list becomes a mile long, a monument to your ambition and a testament to your failure. You are drowning in good intentions. The reframe is simple but profound. A masterpiece is not finished when there is nothing left to add, but when there is nothing left to take away. This is as true for your life as it is for a sculpture or a product. The power is in the empty space. Clarity comes from what you remove. I saw this everywhere. When we designed the iPod, the engineering team initially came up with a complex interface with menus and buttons. It was logical. It was what everyone else was doing. But it was cluttered. The breakthrough was the scroll wheel. It was a process of relentless subtraction. How can we get this down to its essence? How can we remove every point of friction between the person and the music? We took away buttons. We took away menus. We even took away the on-off switch. We subtracted until only the pure, simple, joyful experience remained. Your life is the same. It is cluttered with things you've added over the years out of habit, obligation, or fear. Old commitments that no longer serve you. Relationships that drain your energy. Subscriptions you don't use. Beliefs about yourself that are holding you back. Your task is not to find the one new thing that will fix everything. Your task is to perform a brutal, honest audit of your life and start removing the clutter. What does this mean for you today? It means creating a stop doing list, not a to-do list. Sit down with a blank piece of paper and write down everything you do in a typical week. Then, for each item, ask a simple question. If I had to start my life over from scratch today, would I choose to add this back in? Be honest. You will find that a shocking amount of your time is spent on things you would never consciously choose. That meeting you attend out of habit. That social obligation you dread. That news feed you scroll through that only makes you angry and anxious. Pick one of those things, just one, and kill it. This week. Don't just stop doing it. Erase it from your life. The space that opens up will feel terrifying at first. Then it will feel like freedom. Your life is designed by what you say no to. Third, you must learn to invest your time, not just spend it. The common mistake is to see all time as equal. An hour spent scrolling Instagram feels the same, in the moment, as an hour spent learning a new skill. The clock ticks the same way. This is a dangerous illusion. The reframe is to see your time as investment capital. Every hour of your day is either an expense or an investment. An expense is an activity that consumes your time and gives you nothing back. Mindless entertainment, gossip, worrying about things you can't control. These are expenses. An investment is an activity that might not have an immediate payoff, but it creates more value, more capability, or more time in the future. Learning a skill, building a system to automate a tedious task, exercising, reading a difficult book, or nurturing a key relationship. These are investments. When I dropped out of Reed College, I didn't have a plan. I was just following my curiosity. I slept on the floor in friends' rooms and returned Coke bottles for 5 cents to buy food. By any conventional measure, I was wasting my time. I decided to drop in on a calligraphy class. It had no practical application in my life. It was a pure expense, or so it seemed. I learned about serif and sans serif typefaces, about the art of varying the space between letter combinations, about what makes great typography great. It was beautiful, historical, artistically subtle in a way that science couldn't capture. I found it fascinating. And then I forgot about it. 10 years later, when we were designing the first Macintosh, it all came back to me. The Mac was the first computer with beautiful typography. If I had never dropped in on that single course in college, the Mac would have never had multiple typefaces or proportionally spaced fonts. And since Windows just copied the Mac, it's likely that no personal computer would have them. It was an investment with a 10-year maturation period, an investment in beauty that had an unpredictable but immeasurable return. Your practical application is to schedule one investment hour every single day. This is a non-negotiable meeting with your future self. In this hour, you do not consume, you do not maintain, you create or you learn. You write 500 words of your book. You practice the guitar for 30 minutes. You take an online course in a skill that fascinates you, even if it seems useless. You work on the business plan. You don't judge the output. You just make the investment. Most of these investments will seem to yield nothing for weeks, months, or even years, but a few of them will compound in ways you cannot possibly predict, creating the foundation for your future. Stop spending all your time paying today's bills. Start investing in tomorrow's assets. And finally, the fourth principle. You must bend your world toward creation, not consumption. The most pervasive mistake in modern life is that we have become a culture of professional consumers. We consume news, opinions, entertainment, advice, and inspiration. We read articles about how to be productive. We watch videos about people who have built amazing things. We consume the idea of creation, but we rarely do the thing itself. The reframe is that consumption is gravity for other people's worlds. Creation is the gravity for your own. Inspiration does not precede action. It follows it. You don't think your way into a new way of living. You act your way into a new way of thinking. Momentum is the source of all motivation. At Pixar, when we started Toy Story, the technology did not exist to make the movie we had in our heads. We couldn't render the complexity of the characters. We couldn't create realistic lighting. We couldn't manage a project of that scale. If we had waited until we had all the talent and all the money and all the technology ready, we would have never started. But we started anyway. We wrote the story, and the demands of the story. The need to make Woody feel authentic. The need to make Buzz's flight look spectacular. Forced us to invent the technology. The act of creation pulled the tools into existence. The problem wasn't, we need better technology to tell a story. The problem was, we need to tell this story, so we must invent better technology. This is how it works for you. You are waiting for the perfect idea, the perfect moment, the right amount of money. You are waiting for inspiration. You have it backward. You must start. The act of starting, no matter how small or imperfect, is what creates the gravitational pull. So what does this mean? It means the 15-minute rule. Whatever it is you want to build, whatever project is gathering dust in the back of your mind, you are not allowed to think about it. You are not allowed to plan it. You are not allowed to research it. You are only allowed to work on it for 15 minutes. Today. Open the document and write one paragraph. Take out the guitar and play 3 chords, badly. Sketch one screen of your app on a napkin. The goal is not to make progress. The goal is to break the seal of inertia, to replace the friction of starting with the momentum of doing. 15 minutes of imperfect action is infinitely more powerful than a lifetime of perfect planning. Imagine 2 futures stretching out from this very moment. In the first future, you do nothing. You listen to this, you nod, you feel a brief flicker of recognition, and then you close the window and go back to your life. The loop continues. The blue light in the morning, the numb commute, the scrolling at night. The addiction to someday gets stronger. The years pass. Your talent, once a sharp tool, begins to rust from disuse. Your money, if you have it, sits in an account, a monument to a security you never feel. And one day you wake up and you are old. And the silence you feel is no longer the silence of opportunity, but the silence of regret. The weight of your unlived life is no longer a gentle pressure. It is a crushing burden. You didn't fail. You didn't even try. You just drifted. Now imagine a second future. You don't change everything overnight. You don't quit your job or suddenly become a creative genius. The change is smaller, quieter. Tomorrow morning you don't look at your phone. You sit in silence for 5 minutes and decide on the one thing you will spend your first block of focus on. You invest 1 hour in learning that skill that has been calling to you. You find one thing on your stop doing list and you cut it from your life. You start. For just 15 minutes, you work on your thing. It's clumsy. It's not very good, but it's real. It exists in the world. And you do it again the next day. And the next. A new gravity begins to form. A small, weak pull at first, but it grows. You start to wake up with a sense of purpose, not dread. You begin to feel less like a consumer and more like a creator. The noise of the world starts to fade, and the quiet signal of your own voice gets stronger. You are no longer a ghost in your own life. You are the architect. Slowly, brick by brick, you are building something. It might not be a world-changing company. It might be a small business, a beautiful garden, a finished novel, a healthy body, a restored relationship. The scale doesn't matter. What matters is that it is yours. You are no longer just floating down the river. You are rowing. This is not a to-do list. I don't want you to add more to your plate. I want you to make a decision. Right now. What is the first brick? What is the single, imperfect, ugly action you can take in the next 10 minutes that proves you are no longer a ghost? Not the grand plan, not the mission statement, not the perfectly designed logo for a company that doesn't exist. The first brick. You are paralyzed by the masterpiece you imagine, so you never lay the first stroke. You stand before a colossal, uncarved block of marble, your potential, and you are so intimidated by the David you see inside that you refuse to pick up a chisel. You are a victim of your own ambition. The sheer scale of what you could do renders you inert. This is the great trap of talent. It shows you the mountaintop so clearly that the first step feels insulting, trivial. And so you do nothing. You wait for the perfect conditions, for the right mood, for inspiration to strike you like lightning. Let me tell you about lightning. It's a myth. There is no lightning. There is only friction applied over and over until something catches fire. Your problem is not a lack of vision. Your problem is inertia. You are a monumental force at rest. And a force at rest, according to the laws of physics, tends to stay at rest. You think you need a jolt, a push from the outside world, a sign, an investor, a partner. You are wrong. The only force that can overcome your inertia must come from within. I want you to picture something. In an empty room, imagine a massive iron flywheel, 50 tons, perfectly balanced on an axle. It is your life's work. Right now, it is perfectly still. Your task is not to imagine it spinning. Your task is to make it move. You put your hands on it. The iron is cold. You push. Nothing. Not a millimeter of movement. You brace your feet, put your entire body into it, your muscles screaming in protest. The flywheel mocks you with its stillness. This is the moment you quit. This is the moment you decide the task is impossible, that you chose the wrong flywheel, that you aren't strong enough. This is the moment you walk away and go look for a smaller, easier wheel to spin. But what if you didn't? What if you stayed? What if you pushed again? And again? A full day of effort, and the wheel has rotated maybe a single inch. It feels like a colossal failure. You have poured all your energy into the void for a result so small it's almost immeasurable. This is where everyone gets it wrong. They measure the result. They measure the inch. But the inch doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the push, the consistency of effort. When I bought the computer graphics group from Lucasfilm, it wasn't the Pixar, you know. It was a collection of the most brilliant computer scientists I had ever met, trapped inside a hardware company. They were building a machine, the Pixar image computer, that cost a fortune and that almost nobody wanted to buy. We were losing millions of dollars a year. Every quarter, the financial statements were a bloodbath. My talent wasn't helping. My money was burning. The world saw a failed hardware company run by the guy who got kicked out of Apple. Every instinct was to cut our losses, to pivot into something more commercial. To give up on the insane dream of making the world's first computer-animated feature film, a dream that was, at the time, technologically and financially impossible. The flywheel was impossibly heavy. Every push felt like throwing money into a furnace. But a few people in that building kept pushing. John Lasseter and his team. They weren't trying to build a feature film. They were just trying to make a short. A 2-minute story about 2 desk lamps. They called it Luxo Jr. It wasn't a business plan, it wasn't a strategy to save the company, it was a push. A small, focused, passionate push on the flywheel of creative expression. They finished it. We took it to SIGGRAPH, the big computer graphics conference. The lights went down, the film played, and for 2 minutes the entire room was captivated. It was alive. When it finished, there was a moment of silence, and then the place erupted. People were on their feet. Not because it was a technical marvel, which it was, but because a desk lamp made them feel something. That was the inch. It didn't solve our financial problems overnight. It didn't magically fund Toy Story. But for the first time, the great heavy wheel had moved. A spark of momentum had been created. That little film gave us the belief to keep pushing. It led to another short, Tin Toy, which won an Academy Award. Another push. That led to conversations with Disney. Another push. Each step was agonizingly slow. Each step was met with immense resistance. Toy Story wasn't the first push. It was the result of 1,000 pushes that came before it. It was the moment the flywheel was finally spinning fast enough to generate its own power. This is the physics of a meaningful life. This is the secret they don't tell you in business school. Success is not a lottery ticket you find. It is a gravitational field you build. Consistent action, a push on your flywheel, every single day creates mass. And mass in the physics of life creates gravity. At first, you have to provide all the energy. But if you keep pushing, a point is reached where the flywheel's own momentum begins to work for you. It carries you through the days you feel weak. It keeps spinning while you sleep. And then, the magic happens. The gravity you've built begins to attract things. Talent is attracted to momentum. Money is attracted to momentum. Opportunity doesn't show up when you're standing still, admiring your plans. It bangs on your door when it hears the hum of your flywheel. Your talent and your money are inert. They are fuel without an engine. The engine is momentum. So how do you start? You reframe the entire problem. 1. The common mistake. You are waiting for a perfect map. You think you need to see the entire journey from your garage to global domination. You spend weeks, months, years drawing maps of a country you've never visited. You read books by other travelers, you interview them, you make lists of supplies, but your boots are still clean. The reframe is, define your vector, not your map. A vector has 2 properties, direction and magnitude. That's it. You don't need a map, you just need a compass and the will to take a single step. What is the direction you want to move in? Not the final destination, the direction. Towards writing a novel? Towards building a business? Towards mastering an instrument? Now, what is the smallest possible magnitude of action you can take in that direction today? Not tomorrow. Today. Write 1 sentence, send 1 email, play 1 scale. Forget the map, take 1 step along your vector. The path reveals itself to those who are in motion. 2. The common mistake. You are measuring the result. You measure your day by what you finished. You wrote a chapter, you closed a deal. This framework is a trap. On days when you face resistance and produce little, you declare the day a failure, and your motivation evaporates. You become addicted to the feeling of winning, and when you don't win, you stop playing. The reframe is, measure the rhythm, not the result. The flywheel doesn't care if a single push moves it a mile or a millimeter. It only cares that you push. Your new metric for success is not output. It is consistency. Did you show up today and push? Yes or no? That's the only question that matters. A successful day is a day when you made the push. A string of those days is what builds momentum. The result is a lagging indicator. The rhythm of the push is the only thing you control. Tick, tick, tick. That is the sound of gravity being born. 3. The common mistake: you confuse motion with action. You spend your day in a flurry of activity, answering emails, attending meetings, organizing your files, researching competitors, tweaking your website. It feels productive. You are busy. You are tired at the end of the day. But the flywheel hasn't moved. You are polishing the boulder, not pushing it. The reframe is: differentiate between busy work and forward work. Forward work is the small set of actions that directly contributes to the momentum of your flywheel. It is the push. For a writer, it is putting new words on a blank page. For a founder, it is building the product or talking to a user. Everything else is busy work. It may be necessary, but it is not the work that creates gravity. Your most sacred duty is to protect your best energy that first hour of the day for forward work. Before the world floods in with its demands, before you open your email, before you check the news, you go to your flywheel and you push. You are standing in front of your own flywheel right now. It is cold, silent, and impossibly heavy. The thought of moving it is exhausting. You have a choice. There are two types of pain in this world: the sharp, acute pain of the first push against monumental resistance. It will demand everything you have. It will be ugly, unglamorous, and deeply humbling. Most people will do anything to avoid this pain. And then there is the second kind of pain: a dull, chronic, low-grade ache of regret that spreads over a lifetime. The pain of the uncarved stone, the pain of the silent flywheel gathering dust in the corner of your soul. The friction of starting is temporary. The rust of stagnation is permanent. Look at your hands. They are capable of pushing. Stop admiring the flywheel. Stop talking about the flywheel. Stop asking for permission to touch the flywheel. Put your hands on the cold iron, brace yourself, and push.